Coming up on Tech News Weekly, it's me, Jason Howell, my co-host Mikah Sargent, and a couple of awesome guests. We start talking about, at the beginning of the show, Apple, and they're rolling out some new features, some new changes to iOS around detecting child sexual abuse material. And in fact, at the end of the show, we have some breaking news on that topic, so stick around for that. Also, Cherlynn Low from Engadget spent some time with the new Pixel 6 and Pixel 6 Pro. She joins us to talk all about that. And then Martineau from The Information joins to talk about how Amazon is leading its own trucking effort to improve its shipping challenges. And finally, that Google Plus class action lawsuit you may have heard of, it wasn't even worth the time it took for me to read this tease. All that and more coming up next on Tech News Weekly.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
This is Tech News Weekly, episode 195, recorded Thursday, August 5th, 2021. This episode of Tech News Weekly is brought to you by Akamai. Akamai is the world's largest distributed edge compute platform. To deliver and protect your digital experiences worldwide, tap into Akamai for its unrivaled intelligence, performance, and scalability. Visit akamai.com/TNW today to learn more.
And by Checkout.com. Modern businesses need flexible payment systems that can help them adapt to change, grow, and scale fast. Checkout.com is a leading cloud-based global payment solutions provider. Request a free, no-commitment demo at checkout.com/TNW.
And by Udacity, gain in-demand tech skills in as little as 3 months with Udacity's part-time online tech courses. Visit udacity.com/twit and get 75% off any program with code TWIT75, limited time offer.
Hello, and welcome to Tech News Weekly, the show where every week we talk to and about the people making and breaking the tech news. I am one of your hosts, Mikah Sargent.
And I'm the other host, Jason Howell, and holy cow, it's been one of those days, been one of those mornings where everything goes wrong. So from this moment on, everything's going to go right. I'm telling you, it's my promise to the world, Mikah.
Well, I hope you can keep your promises, Jason. It only makes me nervous when you do that. But we'll get things rolling. We've got a story of the week to kick the show off today before we get to a couple of interviews and round things out with another story of the week. Mine is it's a brand new story that just came out. And right now it's just in kind of the report phase. There are some folks who are talking about this. And it is that Apple is reportedly going to announce client-side photo hashing systems that will detect child abuse images in users' photo libraries. So let's break down what that means. Right now, Apple and several other tech companies have in place certain methods by which they can track child abuse images. They can use this system we'll speak specifically of Apple here. When a user uploads their photos to iCloud, one of the things that happens is that those photos are scanned, and don't freak out. We're going to get to that in just a second. They are scanned in a way to detect if there is known child abuse photography or videos or content in the stuff that's uploaded to your iCloud library. That has existed for some time. This is a thing that Apple has done for some time because it is able to do so with the encryption mechanisms that are in place and the encryption mechanisms that aren't in place. How this works is it is a certain level of obscurity that takes place to protect people's privacy while still being able to detect this. So essentially what happens is they have a database of child abuse photography, images, video, and that content is individually hashed. So it's kind of turned into a code that represents the identity of those photos. Then on the cloud side, when someone uploads their photos to the cloud, each of those things gets hashed. And if the hash matches the hash of what's in that database, then Apple knows that there is child abuse photography, etc., in that library. And then whatever action needs to take place at that point can take place. Up to this point, this has not been a thing that could happen on the client side. By client side, we mean on our devices. It was only a thing that could happen when someone connected to the cloud, uploaded those things to the cloud. But on the device itself, this couldn't happen. Well, what Apple is reportedly set to announce is that they will be introducing client side or on your own device scanning of your library to be able to determine if you have content that is illegal. So the way that 9to5Mac describes it is as such. Apple's system will happen on the client or the user's device in the name of privacy. So the iPhone would download a set of fingerprints representing illegal content and then check each photo in the user's camera roll against that list. Presumably, any matches would then be reported for human review. Now, we know, again, that it happens in the cloud already, and this would add this feature to the device. Here is the concern that some privacy and security advocates have about this, because on the face of it, I think this sounds fantastic. This is a good thing. We're, finding perpetrators and, these different instances of this stuff being online. But where the advocates come into play and what their argument is it depends on who has control of that database with those hashes. That is where we have to look and go, okay, what if, so if we say that the government has control of this database, what happens when they start including photos that aren't, or media that isn't related to child abuse, but is for something else that they're trying to track, something else that they're trying to find? What happens when you have, certain bad actors in that space using this technology that in a way bypasses encryption? At that point, you have an issue. And at its worst, what happens when this technology is given to governments that are not as good to their people, governments that are far more, what's the word I'm looking for? I can't even think of the word, dictatorial. In those cases, then this is also a concern. So that is kind of the base of this right now, is that this is something that Apple is considering or might be announcing very soon. They claim that it's in the name of privacy to do it this way because it will be happening on device. But there is a concern that this could be abused, just as all technology could be abused. And one of the things that Matthew Green, who's a cryptography and security expert, talks about is the concern about its use for private messaging apps. So it says it's possible that in the future, Apple could roll out similar systems to scan content on the client side that would later be stored on a server in an end-to-end encrypted manner. Many governments have campaigned for such a system from E to E, meaning encrypted to encrypted, private messaging apps like iMessage and WhatsApp, as they are worried that the increasing shift to encrypted communications will make it harder for law enforcement to find and prosecute child abuse cases. So right now I type a message on iMessage and I send that to, I can't send it to Jason. I send that to John, Ashley, your iPhone, yeah? No. Well, phooey. I send it to
You have no one to send this message to.
I send it to my co-host, Rosemary Orchard of iOS Today.
There we go.
And as it gets sent off, it's encrypted. And then it's encrypted the whole time. It's sort of in the space. And then it gets to her device, and then her device can unencrypt it and see that message there. What this would do is essentially open up that messaging so that on the device, these things could be detected before you ever get to the encrypted phase, and everything's, locked tight and secure. And so in that instance, if the government is in charge of, any given government is in charge of what that database includes, and so what hashes are created, I can understand the concerns that advocates have about this. I'm curious about your thoughts, Jason.
Well, I mean, my thoughts, this is a very, very new story, right? It was more or less kind of coming to light right before the show, and I'd read through it, and so I've done a little bit of thinking on it, and really, my thoughts are really more questions than fully formed thoughts, because no one can argue that that this problem of child abuse material it's bad news, right? Like it should not exist. No one can. I mean, most anyone in their right mind could not argue otherwise. But at the same time, something like this seems to have a threat, or at least a risk of having that door kind of opened up a little bit further, right? Like, I'm all for this if it is targeted completely at CSAM. And excellent. Like that's a great tool. That's an effective tool potentially to catch these images before they ever go anywhere. But what does this mean for someone who, say, sends an image to a phone and the person on the receiving end, like they had nothing to do with it? All they did was their phone automatically updated and received this WhatsApp message, and it happened to be an image that's on the database. And now suddenly, the recipient of that image, whether they requested it or not, whether they deleted it immediately or not, if the phone recognizes this, does the system then notify someone about this? And is that person now being contacted for something they had absolutely nothing to do with, other than being in the wrong place at the wrong time? What does this mean for parents, right? Like I would say, I could even look back at Polaroids of me when I was a baby, that the like historical like baby in the bathtub image. Like, is that something that has the potential, at least at some point, of triggering this? It's all about, in my mind, the question is, what about false positives? And when false positives happen, in this case, it's a really big deal. You're talking about some very detrimental outcomes potentially for the person on the other end of that. And I realize that no system is 100%, but these are questions and concerns that need to be addressed in something like this. And then there's the extension of something like this, right? Like, again, going back to what I said, if it's limited to the child abuse material, excellent. But when that opens up to other, wider definitions of harmful content, violence, misinformation, like how deep does that go? Does it end up touching into the realm of like social movements and political protests and things like this? Like, it's a door that once opened is a lot easier to open even further. And that's what I'm concerned about.
Mm-hmm. I think that's all of those are kind of my initial thoughts as well. It's all questions. And the fact is, this is something that has existed for some time on the cloud side, so on the server side. So I'm not surprised to hear that it might be coming to the client side. As far as the technology itself, this is nothing new. The concern there is that having it on the client side, what that means for the potential to circumvent encryption. So I know I will be keeping an eye on this story as it continues to break, essentially, and as we hear more from Apple itself on this piece. All right. I think that does it for my story of the week.
All right. Well, we are going to speak next with Cherlynn Low from Engadget. She was actually in the room with the newly announced Pixel 6 and Pixel 6 Pro, so I'm super psyched to get her on to chat about it a little bit. But first, let's take a moment to thank the sponsor of this episode of Tech News Weekly, and that is Akamai. Akamai is critical to what we do here at TWiT. I can think back to my time at CNET and remember just how important and critical my time with Akamai was, because I was working directly with their team on a lot of the back end and a lot of everything that we were serving out to the world. Akamai is the world's largest distributed edge compute platform. And if you want to deliver extraordinary customer experiences and run code at the edge, well, Akamai is incredibly powerful at doing that, because Akamai has 10 times the locations of the nearest competitor. That's over 4,000 locations. And so inevitably, you're always closer to your end user with Akamai. That significantly cuts down on latency, which can be just a real killer if things slow down a lot. Akamai will also greatly improve your customer experience. Your customers are going to get the content, the apps, the sites, the video that they need without lag, interruption, or latency during unexpected traffic spikes. And you can prepare for spikes in demand and optimize resources to provide the best experience for your customers. And in doing so, you're going to be absolutely amazed at Akamai's unparalleled performance. And you'll always be one network hop away from 85% of the world's internet users. It's just that simple. Now, what about scalability? How do things scale? Well, application architects get the flexibility to scale enterprise applications with Akamai Edge Workers. With Edge Workers, your development teams can focus on building while letting Akamai take care of the challenges of scaling globally. They take care of it for you. And because Akamai empowers you to deploy serverless code at the edge, so you won't experience the headaches of increased traffic at origin or the overheads that go along with that. Akamai gives you the power to innovate right at the edge because your logic, your functions are deployed and active at the nearest proximity to your end users. You're getting the fastest end user experience around the globe. And Akamai makes it super simple to build right at the edge, of course, using JavaScript so you can innovate in real time. And you get low latency, access to data for custom code at the edge, and Akamai can optimize your API traffic delivery for edge applications as well. But what's the cost? Even with its unrivaled intelligence, its performance, its scalability, Akamai is comparatively priced. You're going to love it because limits are set per request. You can be sure your workload will scale no matter what the size of your user base is. And being serverless actually means you're going to see decreased overhead at origin as well. You know Akamai and their reputation. They're trusted by the biggest brands in the world, and you're getting 10 times the locations of competitors. So you're getting the fastest customer experience available. So check out the Akamai website to learn more about edge computing. Have a conversation with them, in fact. You might be surprised at just how competitive the pricing actually is. Build closer to your end user with Akamai, the world's largest distributed edge compute platform. Visit akamai.com/TNW today, and you can learn more by going there. That's akamai.com/TNW. And we thank Akamai for their support. It's good to have you guys on board. All right. Earlier this week, Google stopped all the leaks in their tracks, which is kind of a game plan that Google at this point, we kind of expect from Google, at least as related to their Pixel hardware, by outing the upcoming Pixel 6 and Pixel 6 Pro officially. These devices are not expected to be released until sometime in the fall. Usually October-ish seems to be the time frame based on previous years. But we now at least know far more about it officially from Google's mouth. We knew a little bit here and there from leakers, but now we've got Google weighing in. And Cherlynn Low from Engadget was actually in the room with Google, with Rick Osterloh, who leads the Pixel hardware department and the devices. And she's here now to talk about them. Welcome to the show, Cherlynn.
Hey, Jason. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great to get you on. Always happy when we can get you onto the show. So thank you. So you were one of few journalists who were at one point in the past week or so in the room with these devices. It's as we know from the past, when it comes to devices, and especially devices with hardware that looks different than hardware we've seen before, as is the case with the Pixel 6. When you see them online, it's one thing. When you see them in person, it's something else. I know I've seen phones online, on leaks and everything. I've been like, God, that's fugly. And then you get it in person, you're like, wait a minute. Actually, that's pretty cool. I actually like it in person. From a design perspective, what did you think being in the room with them? Did you have a color choice? Like, what were your thoughts there?
I might be a bad tech reporter for this because I didn't even really see any leaks or leaked images before I went into this meeting. I think either that or they've all blended together into this mess. Like I didn't have...
It happens.
Basically, I'm the type of person that doesn't watch the movie trailer before going to see the movie. And so, when I went in to see them, I was just pleasantly surprised. I mean, yes, they look very different, but they're bold. And I think that the Pixel 5 was just kind of bland, right? I think we were all just very underwhelmed by the 5. That to see the 6 have such a clear direction, even if you don't like it, right? I think it's at least saying something about Google's efforts this time around. I like them myself. In person, I'd say we were in a room with somewhat warm light. So maybe that threw off some of the color a bit. It's definitely not as... There's a bit more subtlety to the colors, I would say, in person, and they're shinier. That's one thing I was like, oh, in person, they're shiny. It looked like they were glass covered. They felt good. I liked them. I liked looking at them. I liked holding them. They felt premium. And that's another question I keep getting. They both felt very premium.
Nice. And Google has been emphasizing that point, especially because, like you said, the Pixel 5, I mean, it's what I'm using right now. You know, I have a case on mine, which I'll probably have a case on the 6 also. Very curious to see how that works with that bit large camera, bar, and how a case fills out the space that's left behind. But Google is very insistent that they're pulling out all the stops to make sure that they target these phones as like the premium, the top of the heap. And to that end, if you like having seen the devices in person, like, is there a device that you could compare kind of the build quality and everything? Like when I think of like some of the top end premium flagships that just really feel expensive, let's say, when you have them in your hand, I think of some of Samsung's flagships. Is this of that category, or would you compare it differently?
Yeah, I spoke to some of my other, friends in the industry who also happened to see the phone. I think we were just all passing each other as we were, taking turns to go into the meeting room or whatever. And one of the big takeaways is that it feels like a Note. It feels actually almost like the Note 20 Ultra, at least the Pixel 6 Pro, because it's bigger. That one has a 6.7-inch screen, I believe it was confirmed, and slightly curved glass on the screen. So very Note-like touches. That very squarish design also is very reminiscent of a Note. I will say, though, that like with the colors and that bar, it still retains some Pixel-esque DNA. I like the bar. Having seen how it like remains steady on the surface. When we put it here, there will be a slope, but it doesn't like wobble from side to side, which annoys the heck out of me with modern camera bumps. So this one at least doesn't do that. I thought that was nice. So yeah, to compare it, I think the closest comparison would be like a Note, recent Note, I would say.
Okay. And I think that's a pretty strong comparison, because the recent Notes, from a design perspective at least, are solid devices. They're some of my favorites, the last one in particular. Sorry.
One quick note, the one thing that concerns me about that is that the jump in weight is noticeable. Like, I'm used to a Pixel phone. Everyone who doesn't use a Pixel, and whenever I hand them my phone, they're like, oh my gosh, it's so light. Yeah. That's not the case. The Pixel 6s are definitely heavier than their predecessors, but felt in line with phones of today.
Oh, cool. Did they actually give you the chance to like paw at the phone a little bit? Or
yeah. They were like,
okay.
I was like, oh, I can see them. They're like, feel free to pick one up.
Nice.
Put your hands on it. I was like, okay, nice. Yeah.
Very good. Because that does tell you a little bit something about build quality. Sometimes you can tell when a phone's kind of hollow, and that gives you this essence of inexpensive or whatever. And if they're going for premium, it's good that they allowed you to do that. Now, okay, so part of the story here is, of course, the design, which is very different for Pixel phones, let alone for smartphones, especially in the Android world right now. But the other part, and some would say that the larger part of the story, is the fact that these are the first phones to be running Google's own mobile system on a chip. They're calling it Tensor, which makes a lot of sense. Google likes to, stay in line with their previous marketing things until suddenly they get tired of it and change it for no apparent reason. Right now, they're sticking with Tensor, so that's the chip name. Do you believe that this Tensor chip can actually compete with other top tier chips? Like, they're not, they're no longer going with the latest and greatest Snapdragon, which is what the majority of smartphone makers, at least here in the US, have been doing, including Google. They're not doing that here. They're going with their own. Do you think that based on what you know and you've seen, that they can compete there?
It's really hard to say, just because, to be clear, they haven't released all of the information about Tensor just yet. It's TPU based and its ISP does this, and then no word on which Cortex design, which high efficiency cores, which GPU, and so I asked and I tried to kind of grill Osterloh a little bit more on this, like how are you able to make sure all of this performs at a certain thermal a level that competes with what's out there. And then I was like, did you work with anyone else on this? Because Google has never made chips that we know of just yet. Like, it's unproven. And it doesn't seem like they're clear on whether they will share if they've worked with someone like well known in the space. Osterlo said something along the lines of, we usually, work with a bunch of, semiconductor contractors, that sort of thing. So like it was a very vague answer. One of the answers he gave to, and I said that, don't you think that people might find Google an unproven, company in this space? And he was like, well, but I think people are, he conceded, right, that is true. But he also then said that, like, but I think people know that Google, is good at this stuff. And along that sort of line is what he was saying, that like people should trust us. And I think that's a lot to ask if you're not going to name a partner that's, had at least years of pushing out this stuff. I am reserving my judgment until we learn more. And that's all I can say. Like, until I see that in the fall, they're definitely saying it's just Google that's worked on this, because I can't rule out that they worked with, say, Samsung, co-designed it.
Yep.
And until we can actually use the phone to see how hot it runs when they're applying these like intense computational tasks, I don't know. I'm hesitant. That's all I can say.
Good. Well, no, and that's important. I mean, being in the room with the device for, maybe an hour and seeing their carefully crafted demonstrations and everything only tells you so much. And of course, they're going to show you the good stuff, which speaking of some of those demonstrations, like what stood out as being different from what we've already seen on smartphones so far. And they had a couple of demonstrations that they were showing reporters like you to kind of demonstrate the power of the Tensor chip without telling you very much about the chip itself. What stood out for you in those demonstrations?
So of the 4 things that were shown, I think the things that stood out to me was probably live caption with concurrent translate, only because that was the one demo that seemed to be done in real time. The others were like pictures, before and after pictures, and video comparisons for the photography part. And then one other thing was the voice recognition through Gboard. So with at least with live caption with the new translate option, you can tell that the phone is pushing the chip to do a bit more, right? It's doing 2 things at once, and it's doing it well. So that felt like a more concrete example of what Tensor can do, and also a useful example of something that no other phone is doing at the moment. No other phone's doing live caption to begin with. Now you're adding in translate. So I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, indeed. I'm really curious to see that. And if that is like the baseline, the 3 or 4 things that they showed you now, one can only imagine Google has plans for some really cool stuff down the line, especially because they've built this chip, and they've built this chip to do things like this. And they are a very strong entity when it comes to machine learning and all this computational stuff that's happening behind the scenes that's done magical things to even the camera, in recent years on the Pixel, which is kind of leads into, I think, my last question, because we're about out of time here. But I've felt, and I know I'm not alone, that the Pixel camera is an incredibly strong thing, part of the Pixel experience, has been for years. They've been using the same main lens on these cameras for quite a while, since I think the Pixel 2 at this point. Little long in the tooth at this point. And we're seeing an upgrade on the number of cameras and everything on this new device. Like, based on what you've seen, do you have confidence that they can kind of take these new lenses coupled with the computational promises that maybe the Tensor can hopefully deliver and do something that competes with the best of the best again?
I mean, I think they've done really well. I don't think that I think we're reaching a point where you really can't complain too much about smartphone photos anymore. I think that Google for a while had a lead, and then Apple caught up, and then Samsung caught up, but everything's still kind of green, but then that's a Samsung color. You're going to just have to live with it. So with the new hardware, I think Google, we will see better clarity in pictures. We'll see cleaner stuff, probably more sharper stuff, better nighttime performance. But are we really pushing the limits of, or are we going to expect really a huge jump in level of your photos and videos? Probably not just apples to apples quality, but if we're talking what they can do with cameras from now on, I think we'll see a difference in the sense that like how many multiple things can you do at once? Will your live stream be faster? Will you be able to apply a portrait blur to a foot? Like it's all the special effects, bells and whistles stuff that we're going to see a difference in. As for kind of the base level of quality, I think we'll see an improvement, but not to the point where it's so huge that like we're going to blow our minds or something.
Yeah, totally. It occurs to me as I'm thinking about this that one good example that I could totally see Google nailing in the next coming years, probably not this year, but maybe in the next few years, is the space zoom that we saw on Samsung's phone in the last couple of years, right? The 100x zoom, which is basically unusable. You're never going to take that shot and you're never going to, and frame it or whatever. And now I think I saw that there's a phone with a 200x zoom. It's really just a feature that is meant to get you way closer to an object that you know is out there somewhere, less so about taking a picture. But I could completely see Google using its computational smarts and prowess being like, all right, we're giving you space zoom, but we're going to give you a picture that you actually can do something with. I feel like you're basically, you're very on the so close to what they're probably doing with the Pro, because the Pro has an additional telephoto lens that does up to 4 times optical zoom. And we know that like Google in the past has already done this super res zoom thing where they're giving you zoom, but digital. And because of their computational skills are able to clean it up so well. Combining that with an actual optical zoom, the quality we would get, I feel like this is not that far away, Jason. I think you were like right on the money there for this year, perhaps. Maybe not like intense levels, maybe not 100 times levels, but that's probably one of the features they're going to talk about in the fall launch. Excellent, because that's actually a very usable camera feature. I would love to see that improved. Awesome. Well, this is great stuff, Cherlynn. I really appreciate you taking time today, especially on short notice. So we appreciate the quick turnaround on this. But it's always a pleasure for us to get the opportunity to talk with you. Of course, Engadget.com for people who want to follow all of your work. If they want to find you online and follow what you're doing, where can they find you? Yeah,
I'm at Cherlynn Low on Twitter, CherlynnLow. I also co-host the Engadget podcast, which is why I was ready on short notice.
Excellent. Well, I really do appreciate that. It's awesome from podcaster to podcaster. Thank you again. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for having me. Bye.
All right. Take care.
Bye-bye. Thanks so much. All right. Up next, Amazon wants to help you get truckin'. But first, this episode of Tech News Weekly is brought to you by Checkout.com. Look, tech shouldn't stifle innovation. Traditional payment systems are heavily layered, they're disconnected, and they're perceived as a cost center for the business. Modern businesses need flexible payment systems that can help them adapt to change, grow, and scale fast. We recently came across a company with tech that approaches payments through a radical new lens. It's called Checkout.com. Checkout.com partnered with Oxford Economics and conducted an end-to-end analysis of the payments value chain for merchants. Last year alone, false declines cost the UK, the US, French, and German markets $20.3 billion, and $12.7 billion went to competitors. $7.6 billion was entirely written off. The study found that merchants are not currently optimizing the consumer's significant willingness to pay for speed, for convenience, and for security online. The majority of merchants surveyed do not feel that their payments data is informing their business strategy or their innovation, and 56% of customers surveyed said they won't return to a site because they do not offer their preferred payment method. Like for me, it's Apple Pay. I want to have some type of payment system on there that's very easy to use. Most merchants spend more than 10% of their payments budget on fixing disputes, fraud, and outages. CEOs are more likely to overestimate the quality of data returned to them by payment providers. CEOs tend to underestimate the extent to which disconnected payments are hindering growth, and most merchants focus on the per-transaction costs of their payments, ignoring those back-end costs. Checkout.com is a leading cloud-based global payment solutions provider. Checkout's payment platform is purpose-built with simplicity, with scalability, and speed in mind. It's ideal for merchants looking to seamlessly integrate better payment solutions globally. Checkout.com offers improved acceptance globally and better and more actionable granular data, a flexible product structure that merchants can adapt to their needs, and it's combined with truly personal white glove service. That's why brands across the globe like Pizza Hut, TransferWise, Klarna, Revolut, and Samsung trust Checkout.com. These are some fantastic features that are available for folks to check out. Checkout.com. Checkout.com is the dominant choice for organizations that are looking for the fastest, most innovative, and reliable global payment solution provider. Request a free, no-commitment demo at checkout.com/TNW. That's checkout.com/TNW for a free demo. Checkout.com/TNW. And our thanks to checkout.com for sponsoring this week's episode of Tech News Weekly. All right. So this next story I saw fly by, and wow, that could be a pun, but I don't know if it is, so we're not going to go with it. So I wanted to bring on someone who talks a lot about Amazon and the different projects that they're working on, have worked on, may work on, could work on, do work on in secret, et cetera, et cetera. And that is the one and only Paris Martineau of The Information. Welcome back to the show, Paris.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, we're happy to get you back. So I saw you talking about this story, and we will get to a story you wrote even earlier about Amazon trucking. But the most recent story that you've covered is that Amazon has plans to create a sort of guidebook and incubator for folks to get trucking. Can you talk a little bit more about what this program might be, who it's for, and why Amazon is looking into this?
Yeah, so Amazon over the last couple of weeks has launched this 12-week training program, which they're calling an accelerator, to teach wannabe entrepreneurs how to launch their own small trucking business that will be and that small trucking business that they create then will exclusively haul freight for Amazon. So one big part of how Amazon gets a package to your doorstep in a day or two is that they have their delivery vans, which are in their network, but increasingly over the last couple of years, they've also started having their own trucking operations. They have their own branded trailers, the back part of the truck, and to have kind of dedicated capacity in times where they need to move a lot of stuff around, they also have their own kind of branded tractors, which are the front part of a semi-truck. But they don't have directly employed drivers, and that's where these kind of small companies come in. Increasingly, Amazon has been building up this program called Amazon Freight Partners, which essentially is like a dedicated team of companies that have agreed to exclusively haul goods for Amazon in exchange for getting kind of fancy branded tractors and access to kind of regular work.
Okay. So, yeah, could we talk then a little bit about the sort of what's in it for them thing? This is Amazon looking at providing the loans to get these businesses off and going? Are they just providing guidance? Is there some sort of exclusivity contract? And then what is the benefit to the user what is the benefit to the person who starts a trucking company in saying, and yes, I will exclusively deliver for Amazon?
So the benefit for Amazon is that Amazon is kind of running out of trucking companies to haul its freight. It has this internal program called Amazon Relay, which is kind of like, you can think of like the Uber app, but for trucking. Whenever Amazon needs loads taken between certain warehouses, it'll post it on this online board, and then people can agree to kind of in a gig work style do those jobs. But Amazon is moving a lot of things all the time, and people are only ordering more and more goods. So it kind of needs to build up dedicated capacity to move all of these goods and make sure that it's going to have specific truckers available no matter what. But directly hiring truckers, Amazon self, that is expensive and kind of poses liability issues for a company as large as Amazon. So ideally, they kind of want to farm out this work to other companies and subcontractors. So this program is kind of to enable that. It is modeled after a kind of similar program that they use in last mile delivery. This is the program with all those Amazon vans that you see everywhere. So you can kind of think of this trucking program as like the trucking equivalent to those Amazon vans. It is going to appeal to small business owners who maybe wanted to get into the transportation industry but had no idea how. And Amazon will teach them over a course of 12 weeks to work exclusively for Amazon.
So I guess, is there a, somebody who has a trucking company, it's sort of an active need to find business as opposed to, I guess I'm curious about and confused about why anyone would want to sign an exclusivity contract unless it is hard to find business for things to haul, in which case it's like, oh, then I can continually count on the fact that I will be doing deliveries, versus where you don't have an exclusivity contract and you are, out there making calls offering to deliver. I mean, it seems like there's more supply of trucks than there is, or there's more demand for trucks than there are supply of trucks.
That's completely correct. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, no, it's completely correct. There has been kind of like a trucker shortage, honestly. A lot of companies are competing to get their goods delivered. And so Amazon, with this kind of exclusive program, Amazon has actually had this program called the Amazon Freight Partner Program for well over a year, offering it to people in that kind of Uber-like pool that it uses to join this and get the Amazon trucks if they wanted them. But as my reporting, I guess, has shown from previous articles when I was looking at internal documentation, that program, it hasn't been really popular. And Amazon itself, in a lot of internal company documents, has said the reason it isn't popular is because it doesn't allow the owners of these trucking companies to really maximize for revenue or profit even. It is the best trade-off for somebody who is looking to run an extremely efficient trucking company because, like you said, you're only locked into doing jobs for Amazon. But Amazon is starting this incubator program to try and create its own supply by taking people who wouldn't normally be interested in the trucking or transportation industry and showing them how to launch their own business so that then they can only exclusively work for Amazon. So it's a bit of an interesting choice. And in order to even kind of join this program, you have to have $40,000 in capital kind of to cover the startup costs, which is a lot of money. I originally covered this incubator program back in February when it was just in pilot mode. And some of the proposal documents that I had viewed for that program had said that Amazon was planning to offer loans of up to $30,000 or $40,000 to these participants in the program to cover it. But the, I guess, downside being that if you flunk out of the 12-week training, you still have to pay Amazon back that loan. But in the official version of this program that we're seeing now online, it launched in the last couple of weeks, there isn't any notes about the loans publicly available there. So I'm unsure if the loans are still a part of the program or if that's just something that Amazon brings to participants once you've, already applied.
Gotcha. So, see, and this is starting to sound a little predatory in a way because you bring in people who've not done this before, and so then suddenly, if they wanted to not be exclusive, they don't necessarily understand how the rest of the trucking industry works to be able to go somewhere else. And it's like, hey, you don't need to go out there because we've got as much business as you need. And also we gave you a $40,000 loan. So you've signed on with us. Like this is interesting. Is that kind of some of the what is the reaction that you have seen, if any? Because the one issue with this is it is a very specific topic, and so I imagine it doesn't get as many silly hot takes on Twitter as other things. But what's the reaction? I mean, is this kind of a predatory thing perchance?
So the reaction that I've seen from trucking company owners, they're called owner operators, who participate in kind of the more free pool of this. It's called Amazon Relay, the Uber-like app. A lot of people over the last year have been invited. Amazon invites its highest performing truckers that kind of work on this gig economy basis to join this exclusive program. And I believe I saw an Amazon internal document that said of all the people who they invited to this program and made it to the final round of interviews, somewhere around, I think the number was like only 40% or lower, ended up agreeing to even join the program. Most people declined. And Amazon said that most people declined due to low pay and the lack of flexibility. And that assessment really, I feel like, aligns with what I have heard from people in the trucking industry about this, which is that if you really know what you're doing in trucking, this seems like a kind of bad deal where you're locked into a contract at rates set by a company like Amazon, which you really have no control over.
Interesting. Yeah, that's 40% who said no because we can make more money by not being exclusive. Now, you had written an earlier piece. This was a 5-month investigation with the Amazon trucking boom. This was back in May. That had kind of a rather scary outcome. Can you talk about your piece from May about the deadly toll of Amazon's trucking boom?
Yeah, so Amazon over the last couple of years has been building up its trucking operations, either through this kind of gig work model or, as we've been talking, this more exclusive one. And I started looking into the kind of ramifications that happen. And what I found is that there has been a concerning number of serious or fatal accidents associated with the trucking companies hauling freight for Amazon. A lot of these accidents had kind of similar details, like they occurred late at night where a driver, accidentally went across 4 different lanes of highway and onto oncoming traffic, sort of accidents that experts in the trucking industry say are pretty common with being overworked, underpaid, and sleep deprived, and perhaps falling asleep on the job. And this is kind of where the decentralized nature of this whole operation, I think, really comes into play, because when a truck, one of these trucks that has an Amazon branded, trailer, Amazon branded front, crosses over 4 lanes of traffic and kills a couple of people, even if that truck, that driver, and that company exclusively work for Amazon, the people on the line, the people getting sued, in this case by the victims' families, is not Amazon. It is, Joe Schmo, who owns a small trucking company of 4 contract employees and likely has the minimum available accident insurance because he can't really afford anything else. So oftentimes the victims of these accidents, if there are multiple, they don't end up really getting any real restitution or have a hard time kind of getting much from a lawsuit in these sort of cases, or enough to cover medical expenses, which is really unfortunate.
Yeah, that's and with this incubator program, would it continue to be the same thing? It would be individual companies that Amazon's just hiring, and then I guess they're handing over packages that they can, or not packages, but vinyls or something that they can slap on the sides of their trucks, but they still maintain distance. Is that how this incubator program works?
In this incubator program, even they will be Amazon branded tractors, which is the front part, like that were bought, paid for by Amazon, that are leased to these companies, and these tractors are pulling Amazon branded trailers owned by Amazon. The drivers of these trucks only drive Amazon loads. Their hours and their day-to-day work is set by Amazon, but ultimately, if an accident happens, the person who's responsible is anyone but Amazon, which is a bit unfortunate.
You start to wonder if that's part of the plan. Paris Martineau, I want to thank you so much for joining us today and for continuing to cover all things Amazon. We appreciate you. Of course, folks can head to theinformation.com to check out your great work. But if they'd like to follow you online, where would they go to do so?
Yeah, follow me on Twitter at Paris Martineau.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Paris. All right. Up next, Google Plus is never truly dead. Am I right? But first, this episode, actually, I think it is. It's like truly dead at this point. But somehow it bubbled back up in the news. So we're going to talk about that in a second. But first, this episode of Tech News Weekly is brought to you by Udacity. Udacity offers a unique part-time online education program. It's geared for those who are looking to take their technology knowledge to the next level with specialized and it's just incredible, exciting content. And you can get lost in the Udacity content offerings. Just go to the site and take a look and you'll see. You'll be like, I want to learn about that. I want to know more about that. Udacity offers the latest cutting-edge nano-degree programs, many of which are not even available anywhere else. So things like AI, deep learning, flying car, and autonomous flight engineer. That sounds pretty exciting. Intro to self-driving cars, machine learning engineer, robotics software engineer, all kinds of things. All different directions that you can take your career. To create the course content, Udacity partners with industry leaders. So we're talking Microsoft, Google, IBM, AWS, and so many more. And then selects team leads at those top companies to be the instructors. So if you love learning and you're always looking to know more new tech stuff, you're learning from the people that know it best. And Udacity is where you do that. Udacity can help you master the latest tech skills and techniques. So courses there are project-based. So it's active learning. It's not just passively watching a video online, which you could maybe do that anywhere. But this is really, it's all about kind of integrating what you're watching with what you're doing. It covers cutting edge technology, lets you test your knowledge. Homework and projects are reviewed by qualified professionals. So you're going to have a real human providing actual feedback and reviews on your work with access to mentors 24/7. And Udacity's flexible schedules actually mean that you can, put in just 5 or 10 hours a week. Really just depends on what your schedule is, working at your own pace any time of the day or night. And you can graduate in as little as 3 months. The World Economic Forum estimates that 75 million jobs are going to be replaced by automated processes within the next 3 years. And Udacity prepares its students for the jobs of the future. Over 14 million people in over 240 countries now use Udacity. So many people using Udacity to learn about the future of technology. And you can check their detailed course listings at udacity.com. I highly recommend that you do that. Like I said, you'll get lost in it. Once you enroll as a student in a specific course offering, you're going to be prompted to view the online course as well as complete a series of projects and support courses. They also offer flexible payment options so you can learn at your own pace and your own schedule and pay as you go. And Udacity also has free courses as well. If you just want to kind of dip your toes in and see what they offer, they have some pretty awesome courses offered for free. Does your team actually need to master cutting edge technologies like data science, AI, and cybersecurity? Well, there's Udacity for Enterprise. And with this, you can upskill your entire workforce with real-world project-based learning. Be sure to check out the enterprise section of Udacity's website today. So get the in-demand tech skills that you actually need nowadays to advance your career. Visit udacity.com/twit and you'll get 75% off any program with code TWIT75 or TWIT75. Limited time offer here. That's udacity.com/twit and enter code TWIT75. And we thank Udacity for their continued support of Tech News Weekly and the TWiT network. All right, so Google Plus, this is just kind of crazy here. Basically, what we're looking at here is Google Plus. You may remember. Do you remember Google Plus? It's that social network that Google created way back when, and I was firmly on the Google Plus train. I don't know about you, Mikah, but I was in on it for a while, and then it kind of started to wane a little bit, started to drift away. But when past its moment, its prime moment, we started to, which kind of started to decline back in about 2014. we started to kind of forget a little bit about Google+. People weren't really using it. It was just kind of collecting spam and all this kind of stuff. Around 2018, the Wall Street Journal had this report, and they were basically pointing out that Google+ had actually surfaced, or exposed anyways, a lot of private information of its users through, out to the public via APIs and other things. This private information. And Google said ultimately around 500,000 accounts were affected. So, this private information made accessible to the public. Initially, the Wall Street Journal reported that Google was aware of this, but did not go public with it, did not report or let anyone know that their data may have been affected, that they effectively sat on the information. That was the Wall Street Journal report. And Google, of course, denied, but then eventually they came out and they admitted, all right, so there's something going on here, 500,000 accounts, not actually private as far as the information of the report was concerned. And once that happened, Google essentially shuttered it for good. They were like, all right, Google Plus is more trouble than it's worth. Obviously, if it's just sitting around and now suddenly we're dealing with this huge, privacy story, let's just get rid of it because it's not doing us any good. There's no need or reason for it to exist. And shortly after, as you can expect, class action lawsuits were filed. One in particular, Mathematic and Zach Harris versus Google, filed almost immediately after in October 2018. And it's taken a couple of years for that to kind of see its way through the court and get to a final space that it is right now. Actually, last June, the case was settled. Google agreed at that point to pay out $7.5 million to the people who got in on the class action lawsuit, which totals around 1.7 million people who signed up for this, said, hey, I'm a Google Plus user. This could have been me. I want in on this. I just thought this story was ridiculous because it just goes to show how pointless sometimes these things are, because at the end of the day, 7.5 million was the payout. Everybody that applied to be part of this class action lawsuit gets a total of $2.15. So in essence, your supposedly private data in the eyes of a big technology company worth $2.15 after everybody is paid, of course, which is just kind of laughable. Anytime you get a check for $2.15, you're kind of like, well, what? It takes more energy. On my part
to go through the whole process. Do anything
with this.
And that's kind of, I think, part of it, right? Is enough people will be like, oh man, I've got to click these 7 buttons, type in these 4 things, and all I'm getting out of it is $2.15. So then less people end up getting reimbursed, or however you want to put it, paid out through this. There have been a couple of times where I have gone through the process for maybe $10, but I can remember getting a class action notification not too long ago, and I thought, I don't need that $1.74. I'm okay. I don't feel like going through that. So I do. Maybe that's cynical, but I do feel like that's part of it.
It is. Yeah. I mean, it's like, I didn't sign up for this class action lawsuit. Most of the time when I get those things in the mail, I honestly, I do nothing with them, because I'm kind of like, you know what? It's like more energy for me to like get involved with this than anything. I don't want to have to fill out the thing. Usually it's not worth the time on the other side. And to someone who is really, really concerned about their privacy online, well, I mean, one could argue like maybe you don't sign up for social media or social networks because, you're taking that risk with anything online. But a $2.15 payout for something where it is pretty obvious that Google just, in essence, at least according to the case, kind of didn't care. They went out of their way to not tell people about this thing that people really did care about. So $2.15, don't spend it all in one place. I don't even think you can get a coffee for that, but if you can, go for it.
Yeah, if you can, let me know where, because I want to check out that place.
Yeah. If you got this payout and you have big plans for your $2.15, let us know on Twitter, and you'll get our Twitter handles here in a second. But that's it. It's a super quick story. Not a whole lot to it other than, oh my goodness, I can't even believe it, except that I can, and that's why it's ridiculous.
I would like to issue a breaking news. Apple has officially announced new protections for child safety, including features in iMessage, iCloud photo scanning, and more. According to 9to5Mac, the first announcement today is a new communication safety feature in the Messages app. Apple explains that when a child who is in an iCloud family receives or attempts to send sexually explicit photos, the child will see a warning message. They'll see a pop-up message that informs them why the image is considered sensitive. So it will be blurred, and the Messages app will display a warning saying the image may be sensitive. If the child taps view the photo, then they'll get a pop-up that says that. The pop-up explains that if the child decides to view the image, their iCloud family parent will receive a notification to make sure you're okay. The pop-up will also include a quick link to receive additional help. Additionally, if a child attempts to send an image that is sexually explicit, they will see a similar warning. Again, warned before the photo is sent, and the parents can receive a message if the child chooses to send it for kids under the age of 13. Apple says that this feature is coming later this year to accounts set up as families in iCloud. So there'll be an update that offers this feature. Then the CSAM detection that we talked about earlier. Apple is announcing new steps to combat the spread of child sexual abuse material, or CSAM. And it says it will allow Apple to detect known CSAM images when they are stored in iCloud Photos. Apple, I'm trying to see here if it's what it says about local. Yeah. If there is an on-device match, the device then creates a cryptographic safety voucher that encodes the match results. So it does look like it does include client-side options. So yes, there's a database of known CSAM image hashes. On the device, they take those list of image hashes, they take the user's photos and drop them into a bucket, and then anything that sifts out to be the same, they turn those into safety vouchers, which are then uploaded to Apple. If the threshold of matches is exceeded, meaning, over a certain amount of these are done, it says only then can Apple interpret the voucher content for CSAM matches, and then it's reviewed by Apple, and the report is sent to the NCMEC, which I do not know, national something. Oh, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. So there's a threshold as well. Apple does not make clear what that threshold is, but you get enough of those safety vouchers, and then this is going to be reviewed by Apple to make sure that it's doing the testing correctly, and then it will be sent off. Apparently, there are also updates to Siri and Search. Apple is expanding guidance in Siri and Search by providing additional resources to help children and parents stay safe online. Users who ask Siri how they can report CSAM or child exploitation will be pointed to resources, and then they're updated to intervene when users perform searches for queries related to CSAM. So it will explain to users that interest in this topic is harmful and problematic, and provide resources from partners to get help with the issues. Then I'm not going to read on because the rest of it is just testimonials, but essentially it's they got a bunch of different testimonials from different experts in the field to talk about these features and say why they're important and why it's good that Apple is doing these things. So what was once a report of Apple announcing this is now true and out there. So you can read more on Apple's website. I imagine it's in their newsroom, which you can find at apple.com.
Interesting.
So yes, thank you for letting me break in with that news there. And
definitely we'll be curious, continue to be curious to kind of see how this develops. Of course, on the Android side, I'm curious when things like this happen to see if Google, attempts to follow suit or whatever. Because, kind of like we were saying earlier, like I applaud anything that is going to cut down on this material. I'm just really curious about what that opens the door for. I do find it really interesting that first part of that announcement, I don't believe was part of the leaks. The fact that a device in the hands of a child where they're either receiving or sending
more consumer-facing features were not in the leak.
Yeah, that's really interesting because I mean that is an ongoing challenge. Apparently, kids send nudes. It happens from time to time. They're doing it from phones, and if they're doing it, it's highly likely that they don't understand what exactly they are involving themselves in. Exactly. The impact from a legal standpoint and from just the rest of your life standpoint. So systems in place that help mitigate that and prevent that from happening, and also educate around that. I'm all for that. That sounds like a really interesting feature.
And I really like. I personally think that the way that it's implemented there, where essentially the child has the opportunity to have that kind of stop and process and undo a boo-boo. And then it doesn't have to be a thing that then gets reported. It's like if the child chooses to send it, then the parent is notified. So I think that, that helps to teach responsibility on its own. And, there's trust in that. And so, all of that, I really think those consumer-facing features that weren't in the original leak or, a report are really interesting and good. And it sounds like it's going to be something that in iCloud Family, you as the parent can go in and turn on in your iCloud Family settings. So
it's
we'll stay tuned for that for sure.
Indeed.
All right.
All right. Well, with that, we've reached the end of this episode of Tech News Weekly. We publish every Thursday at twit.tv/TNW. That's where you can go to subscribe in audio or video or jump out to YouTube. It's all there, twit.tv/TNW.
By the way, did you know you can get all of our shows ad-free? You can. It'll cost you $7 a month. That's it. And you're going to get access to all of the Twit shows with no ads. You'll also get access to the Twit Plus bonus feed that has content you won't find anywhere else, and access to the members-only Discord server, where you can hang out with hosts, producers, all of us here at Twit, and also your fellow Club Twit members. It's a great place to be. It's a lot of fun to hang out and chat with folks there and share lots of animated images and videos and links and things. All of that, if it sounds good to you, which of course it does, how could it not? It's twit.tv/clubtwit, $7 a month. If you file that class action, then you're like, what, a quarter of the way there?
File a bunch of those class actions, and then you can pay for a month.
Okay, neither of us are lawyers, and you should not listen to our legal advice. Anyway, twit.tv/clubtwit. And by the way, if you want to follow me on social media for whatever reason, you can find me at Mikah Sargent on pretty much all the social networks. And check out later today my show Smart Tech Today, which will be hosted with my pal Rosemary Orchard as Matthew Casanelli is on vacation. And then tomorrow, you'll see Rosemary Orchard again when she and I do iOS Today. What about you, Jason?
Well, you can find me on Twitter at Jason Howell. I don't know what my TikTok ID is, but I recorded a video and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to throw this on TikTok and get 5 views on it. So if you go to my Twitter, which is at Jason Howell, you'll see a post in the last couple of days of me directing to my TikTok account, which I hardly ever use. But basically, the long and short of it is it's the process that I go through every time I have to get into this desk and out of it for a podcast. The results may surprise you. So go to at Jason Howell on Twitter to see that.
The results may surprise you. You won't
Thanks to
guess
John
what
Ashley.
happens next.
Sorry. Exactly. Except you probably can, because you probably heard me complain about it before. Big thanks to John Ashley at the studio, also Burke, John Slanina, everybody who helps us do the show each and every week. Thank you. We couldn't do it without you. And we couldn't do it without you for watching and listening each week. So thank you. We'll see you next time on Tech News Weekly. Bye, everybody.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? I am Ant Pruitt, and I want to tell you about my show, Hands on Photography, here on TWiT TV. Each and every week, Thursday that is, I like to sit down and share with you the best tips and tricks that are going to help make you a better photographer. And it's not always about Photoshop. It's not always about just having the biggest and baddest and bestest camera. It can be the simplest of things, like leave your eye open when you're looking through the viewfinder. All of these simple tips can really help step your photography game up. So subscribe to the show today. That's twit.tv/hop. And I look forward to talking to you soon.